craving happiness, needing a change, but not willing to fully commit to jumping in. I repeat, craving happiness, needing a change, but not willing to fully commit. That is what we're going to discuss today. You're listening to Raise the Anchor with your host, Melissa Burbridge, where we take you through life-changing decisions and dig deeper into those decisions to see how they affected the people that made them. I'm so excited to be bringing you these new episodes that are more in line with the original premise of the podcast. So you're going to see quite a few with just myself going through the pillars of what the podcast is supposed to be all about. I want to be able to bring you the most value I can with this podcast so that you can leap into the person you want to be, working something that is more aligned with who you are. So this is the first of a series, and I will be starting with the beginning of my story and working through them so that you can see the relevance and the changes that have happened along the way and how I will be able to help you do the same thing. So before I was a nurse, I was a paralegal, operations manager, a bunch of different managing roles. Almost every job I had before nursing, I ended up as a manager or a key holder very early on. I think that's why some of my nursing role didn't properly align with who I am, because I am more meant to be that leader or that coach or that buddy next to you, helping you get to that next stage, because that's the type of job that always aligned with who I am. I lived in Nova Scotia, and then I was transferred to Ontario to help open up a call center. It was there that I met my husband, and I moved to Southern Ontario. When I was in Southern Ontario, so I moved from Petawawa down to Southern Ontario, and to have a job that paid around the same, I would have to drive into Toronto, and we were about an hour and a half outside of Toronto. So that would have been a 3-hour commute there and back because of traffic, plus the whole work day, and we were getting ready to have a family. So I knew then that it probably wasn't the wisest choice. So I just kind of went into, what was my first job in Ontario? I went back into reverting back to doing waitressing and cooking. Both very good jobs. And while we had our baby, they were very satisfying jobs. And then as the kids started to get older and I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while, I wanted that career. I have this passion and this drive just to do stuff. I'm such a workaholic as well. And that working as a waitress was not going to cut it. I was meant for more. Also, while I was at home with my babies, I was doing Pampered Chef. So I went to this place and I got this test to see what I would be good at. And the test didn't take into consideration all my past skills. It didn't take into consideration my personality or any of that. It was just a test to see how I felt about certain things. And it spit out that I could be a nurse or a police officer. I love police officers. They do an amazing, hard job, and I give them all the credit in the world. But I could not see myself holding a gun or doing some of the actions that they have to do. Now, I won't lie, I was naive to what nursing would really be like, but you'll hear about that a little bit later. So after that test, I decided to get into the nursing world, and I was kind of excited, but I decided to go the smart route. Because paralegal was the lead into becoming a lawyer down the road, I just didn't have the money at the time to get into law school, to becoming a lawyer down the road. I decided to do the same with nursing. So I became a nurse assistant, CCA, PSW. It's called something different everywhere. Um, I did that first just to see if I really liked it before I jumped in, spent a lot of money on nursing school, and then hated the job. Well, I ended second in my class, and it was pretty amazing. Won some awards, felt I was on a really good high, got accepted into nursing school while I was still there, got a job while I was still in school. So everything was looking rosy. And then I started my actual job. So I became a CCA and was working really well. A few things came up in my first few months that, even though I was accepted into nursing school and I'm about to start, made me kind of question a few things. I got assaulted at work by a patient, and I realized that it's one of the few professions that people can go to work and get beat up and nothing really happens, because it's not always the patient's fault. A lot of times they have dementia or brain injuries or some sort of event that prevents them from being whole. Yet it's still accepted that they could beat other people up. Anyways, it's a hard thing to realize that you could go to work every day and get beat up. It's frustrating, and you push those feelings in because you're like, you just accept it. It's a part of the job and you accept it. It's not a good part of the job. It shouldn't be a part of the job, but it is. It really is. And I think in nursing school or even in CCA school, they should somewhat prepare you for that. They give you this nonviolent intervention course. It does nothing, because on my second day, I had to physically restrain somebody. They didn't teach me that in school. So here I am, this perky little thing, ready to get my day going, and I'm getting beat up. And then all of a sudden, like, it's okay, we gotta strap this person to the bed. Like, they're more harm to everybody else. So I had no sweet clue how to put a strap together. I'm more blindsided by the fact that this person is like trying to wail away at me, and now I'm supposed to be strapping them to a bed. Like, what the hell did I get myself into? And why am I bringing this up? Because it was then that I'm like, oh my God, I'm accepted into nursing school. I'm like, I love most of the job, but what the hell did I get into? And I literally didn't go to work. I was classified as casual, but working full-time hours. And they knew my work ethic. So a few days after I wasn't picking up to go in, a nurse manager called me and said, okay, we know you want full-time hours. You're applying for full-time jobs, but you're not coming in. Like, what's up? Like, we notice your last two shifts were pretty stressful. Is it something there? Like, if you need some help or some talk? I was very happy for that phone call, because I got to express, because at home I couldn't really tell my husband that, we just blew a lot of money for school. Yes, we just paid for the first semester of nursing, but really not sure I should be going into it. So I went in, I chatted with the therapist. They said, you have the beginning stages of PTSD. So we're going to monitor you. We're going to chat. We're going to go through this whole program, and, like, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable. So I worked through everything for a long time, and I had a good grasp. And let me tell you, those first couple of days were nothing compared to what I went through as a nurse for the next while, even through nursing school. I can tell you, part of me kind of wished I went with my gut then and didn't actually go to school. I probably could have gotten refunded. But another part of me loves all of the experiences I had as a nurse, all the nurses I met, all the night shifts. They were so fun. Night shift was always fun. but everything I witnessed definitely helped prepare me for what I do now. It also opened my eyes up to behind the scenes of what first responders go through. And right now, while we're in this pandemic, my heart goes out to you because it is already a stressful job being an officer, being a paramedic, being a firefighter, being a nurse, being a doctor, being respirology, any of those professions that are first responding, answering to this pandemic and doing all of the work. You are true heroes. I can't even express without tearing up here. You do an amazing job. And as I'm looking at getting back into nursing to keep my license, I'm scared because I know what to expect. I don't know how you guys are doing it right now. I don't know how the regular stress of the job and now this pandemic, how you're even standing. But if I can come in and help you guys even a sliver, that will make it worth it. But let's get back on topic. So I went through nursing school and then became a nurse for a while. I learned very early on in my nursing career that I have a superpower where I can absorb all of the stress or negativity or it's hard to describe, but a very stressful situation. I have this innate ability to be able to suppress anything inside me and project nothing but calmness. It's what a lot of people say is good about my voice. And I don't know if it's my voice or my mannerisms. So I used to run codes. So for the non-medical people, the code blues, the code blacks, the code whites, I used to tend to run those codes. All of my nursing buddies know that. There was actually a particular other nurse who was really good at it as well. And we used to almost fight to get to those codes. And it's not because we wanted to go to those codes, at least not for me. It was watching the synergy of everybody working together to solve a problem. And that got me thinking a few times, okay, going to a code blue and running it and knowing this person's dying was not my favorite thing to be doing, but yet it was also my favorite thing to be doing. And that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around. Like, how can you like running a situation? But if you watch the hospital, there's always budget cuts. There's always the politics. There's always the stress of the job. Yet during a code, everybody came together. Now, if you had somebody who was strung out at running the code, that energy definitely went throughout the code, and the code was usually not necessarily unsuccessful, but it was definitely 10 times more stressful than it should have been. But if you have somebody calm calling the code, it helps. It definitely helps, and it lets it run a lot smoother. And that's actually what I loved. The first code I ever called, it was by mistake because they thought I was a full-fledged nurse at this point. CCAs weren't supposed to be calling codes. Yet it was so calm and constructed that they were like, oh my God, you did an amazing job. Like, you have to do this more often, because I was able to give direction the whole time and nobody fell off key. The person didn't end up making it, which was really sad. It was a really sad story I'd love to share, but for privacy reasons, I can't. But it was after that one that I was like, okay, well, what did I do any different than anybody else? I then went to a code where I wasn't allowed to call, and the code was run incredibly bad. And there were so many missteps. It made it become clear to me why my running the code was more effective. So ever since then, I kind of go into every situation thinking that way. What can I do to change these things? I still do it that way. When my daughter was sick last year and we kept going back to the hospital, I kept pinpointing the faults that they did, the things that could have changed to better protect my daughter. So every time I go into a situation now, whether it be medical or business wise, I try and look at the whole picture and the picture down the road than just at that moment. And it kind of drives some people crazy. Fast forward another year, and I started doing network marketing again. So I'm not saying that having a side job necessarily means that you're dissatisfied with your job. Maybe you want the extra money, or there are other reasons. But for me, it wasn't the money. It was something was missing from what I was doing. So I started doing network marketing jobs again. I wasn't getting quite the success I had before, but I think that was the overwhelm and the stress. So I was starting to take time away from my family to go do these parties. And then I got it in my head that I wanted to do so well at those network marketing jobs that I replace my nursing jobs. And that was new to me. So I really had to go back inside myself and say, okay, what is going on? Why do you want to leave nursing? And anytime I mentioned it to my husband, he was not on board because he was so proud I became a nurse. It was like that designation of a job made him more proud than if I was to do a network marketing job. But he wasn't seeing what the job was actually doing to me. I literally felt myself revert inside. I slowly started not becoming the mom I wanted to be. It's not that I was not there for my children. I was definitely there for my children. I was definitely thinking of my children all the time. I didn't see myself baking the cookies. And when I thought about having children, I thought about baking cookies. I thought about baking cakes. I thought about dance parties. I thought about all of that. And I didn't see myself doing that too much because I didn't have the energy. I really didn't have the energy. I was always so tired. I was kind of cranky at times too, but I reverted in and I didn't really let too many people see my true emotions. Other nurses, yes, they could see some of my emotions because I could feel their emotions too. But people found I was cold. They didn't find I was mean. They just didn't find I showed a lot of emotion. I always hid my emotions because being a nurse, you had to hide those emotions from your patients. You couldn't let them see that they were getting to you. And I adapted. And I did that with all of my emotions. Except for my husband, he saw my anger. Not in the like, I'm going to beat up my husband kind of way, but he saw my frustrations. And we had a lot of stress going on in our family as well. Both my husband and son. Maybe they were feeding off my stress or I was feeding off their stress, but they both have stress and anxiety issues. So they can't handle stress or change. And all of these things kind of fed into each other. And I just felt off balance, like completely off balance. I stopped doing the network marketing because it was just not working. I tried to be more present for my family, but I was exhausted. I tried going back to therapy and working through some things, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And then my husband got a transfer to Nova Scotia. So I was in Southern Ontario, and now we can move back so that I could have my bearings. Because if I'm going to be the strong one that they need, I need to have my own bearings. And I didn't feel like I had my bearings. I had great friends. I had great neighbors. Just didn't feel like I had my bearings. If you watch my social media, you know, the ocean holds a certain place in my heart. And the ocean it's not necessarily the friends and family, but the ocean grounds me. It grounds me to my core. And I really needed that. I did need my family and friends as well. And don't get me wrong. They're definitely a part of my grounding as well. But I just feel grounded with the ocean. No matter where I go, coming home to the ocean, it makes me feel whole. So we come here and I start nursing again. And it was wonderful in the beginning. Didn't necessarily love the first place that I was working. But then I I got into home care as a nurse, and things were going great. I was making good friends as nurses. Then the politics started to happen again. Nursing in Southern Ontario compared to Nova Scotia is very different. And I felt like I regressed in my nursing abilities. I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that I would have been able to do in Ontario. And there was a lot of procedures that need to be changed in Nova Scotia that Ontario had. I'm not saying Ontario is better at nursing than Nova Scotia. I'm just saying when you had such structure and you go to the unstructure and you can see how to fix it, but you're the little man on the pole and nothing's ever going to change, it gets stressful. It starts to wear on you. And when you're seeing that repeatedly over and over and over again, so I got back into network marketing, and it was like a positive thing in my life. When everything else seemed negative, it was something positive. Not that my family was negative, but there was just something missing. So I got back into network marketing and I focused on it. I focused real hard because at this point I said, I have to figure out something. I need to drop my hours. I don't necessarily need to leave nursing, but I need to do something because I don't feel whole. Did everything. And I realized that I think it was because I was mentoring, coaching, and leading people. I'm not a salesperson, but I loved being in control of what I could do to help others. So I really was trying to focus on that part. I had also picked up a side job working at a property management place, showing apartments. It was fun. It was easy. I love people. And then trauma happened. I can't even really describe what happened, but I can say it left such a mark that I had a hard time thinking that something like this could happen to anybody at any time in the nursing world, and your company doesn't care. After this event happened, I went back to work and I kind of really went inside. I became a shell of a person. I literally went to work on autopilot. I didn't even remember my work days half the time. I didn't remember being with my family half the time. I would wake up, I would go to work, I would come home and not have a sweet clue what happened that day. And that was a huge wake-up call. I started really focusing on a trip that I was already planning. It was a good trip. It was taking my kids to Disney, and it was just going to be the three of us, and we were driving down to Florida. And I really started to focus on that, and I kind of ignored the nightmares. I kind of ignored the insomnia, the not eating so well. I ignored all those other PTSD signs. I just focused on Disney, and I didn't even focus on the trauma. And then something threatened to cancel that whole trip. And you want to bet that triggered me hard. All of a sudden, this shiny light that is going to be everything for me is now being threatened to be taken away. So I have all this unprocessed trauma. I have the lack of sleep. I have all of these negative things coming in for this perfect storm. I literally unleashed. Somebody decided to steal part of my identity. So my credit cards were shut down. What was going to be holding us back from the trip? It's not that I needed the credit card. It's that I wanted it as a comfort zone because I'm leaving my own country. I need to have knowledge that I can protect things if I'm in a different country. Plus, what if I go down to that country and they're not going to let me back in because part of my identity was stolen? I needed that protection. Long story short, everything got worked through, but I had started having panic attacks at this point. I took 2 weeks vacation, and I knew that upon coming back from vacation, I'd be going on stress leave. I made that deduction that I just wasn't going to be able to do this. I needed to regroup. I needed to work through all of these emotions. I needed to figure stuff out. I hadn't decided I was leaving nursing at this point. I just knew I needed I needed a break. I needed to figure things out. Too many things were coming and I couldn't control it anymore. The night before the trip, I was given Ativan by the doctor to take to the US with me because she's really worried about my nightmares. She was really worried about my panic attacks that I was now having. She just said, in case something happens, here's an Ativan to relax you. And the trip went off without a hitch. It was amazing. My kids and I were getting closer than we had been in years. Like, we really grew so close. I thought I was close with my children before, but I really was present. The stress of the job was away, and unfortunately my husband wasn't with us, but I was really just able to be with my family. And it wasn't until the way back, like I didn't have any nightmares while I was gone. I didn't have any panic attacks. Everything was perfect. I would have felt like I was the most present person I could have been. I felt aligned. I felt happy. We're on this big adventure. And for people who know me, know I like to travel and I like adventures. I'm not the crazy jump off the airplane, although that might be something fun. I do have a fear of heights, so that would be funny, but I'm not the crazy kind of adventure. I like going and doing stuff. I was so excited that the trip was so well. I knew like when I got back, I'm going to have to go on stress leave and I'm going to have to figure these things out. Right now, everything's perfect. And then we spent a good day in Washington, D.C., doing the museums after barely getting any sleep the night before. And I was so excited about how much energy I had. We had a really bad hotel the night before. Like, I think I slept an hour and a half. And then we went out in the sun of Washington, D.C. for the whole day. We did museums. And then we were just driving back. We were going to drive back a couple hours past New York City so that the next leg, the last leg home, wouldn't be quite as long. So we did that. We got out of Washington a little later than I would have wanted, but we were cruising. We had done some pit stops, and then my GPS started acting up just as we headed into New York. And just after we got off the bridge in New York, my GPS took me down this ramp, and it was a super windy ramp, and I was lost, and the GPS was giving out, and it wasn't letting me know where I was going, and I could see the water glistening, and all of a sudden I could just feel this warmth come up through my feet, up through me, and my breathing changed, and I was full-blown panic attack. Full blown. On a ramp in the middle of New York City, having no sweet clue where the hell I am, with two babies in the back seat. They're not so babies, but to me, they're babies. And I stopped. I stopped the car. The stupidest thing you could do, because anything could happen. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I was in the middle of a panic attack. And I physically couldn't move. And then I felt this sweet little hand on my shoulder. And it was my little girl. And she said, "Mom, it's going to be okay. Mom, I don't know what's going on, but I need you to breathe. Practice with me, Mom. 1, 2, 3. In. 1, 2, 3, out." And she de-escalated me like I couldn't even imagine. It's still hard. It was so beautiful. She just talked to me and she decompressed me. And we got off the ramp and there was an officer and he like kind of told us how to get rerouted and go back. And the reason I'm losing it because that was just like such a moment. But it was the things going through my head that I've never really revealed before because, it's bad enough your little girl's talking you through a panic attack. It was the realization of feeling lost that triggered me. because I felt loss personally. I had no idea what I was going to do. And now we're a day away from being home. That's what was going through my head. I'm going to have to come back to reality. And reality hit in a panic attack. I'm going to have to decide what I'm going to do next. I'm going to have to decide how to work through these emotions that I've just literally shoved down in there. I'm going to have to decide what I want to be when I grow up. I'm going to have to make all of these decisions starting tomorrow. And it scared the shit out of me. I literally couldn't do much. We finally got back onto the highway, but I was so shaken to my core. I could feel mini panic attacks coming on the whole time I drove. So we just kind of pulled into New York and stayed at a hotel because I was done. I was literally done. And we slept. And I think I slept a good 10 hours. And we were supposed to be back on the road super early the next morning. But I slept hard. I was doing everything I could to avoid going home. It's not that I didn't want to go home to my husband or my dog. I didn't want to go back to my life because I didn't know what I was going to do next. In the shower the next morning before our last leg home, that I told myself, I know my husband's not going to be happy with me. I know my kids are going to wonder. I know my friends and family are going to think I'm crazy. I can't go back to nursing. I simply can't. I had no idea what I was going to do next, but I knew I could not go back into nursing full time anyway. So it was then and there I made the decision. I'm not going back into nursing. I have to figure out what I'm going to do next. I got home. I told my boss, the boss that I was working with casually at the property management, I'm not going back into nursing. I might be able to give you some more hours. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do yet. I have to figure that out. So I went on stress leave. I picked up a few extra hours. I went back into therapy. I worked through the PTSD. And I still had no idea what I was going to do. And it was then that the property management person said, you know what, you're an amazing employee and you're so good at what you do. I know you could help me out more. Why don't I hire you on full time while you try and figure things out? So that's what I did. I jumped into that. And while I jumped into that, I had also started doing her social media. Another person asked me to do their social media, and my accidental business kind of started from there. Also as a healing project, and the fact that my daughter and I wrote and cooked so much while we were away, we decided to start a mommy and daughter blog. So these are all positive energies in my life. I felt more complete. Even though I was still unsure of what I was going to do next, I felt more complete. So while I was doing the property management job and doing the social media for the other people, my passion grew and I started to really work through these emotions and figure out what I wanted to do next. And what I wanted to do next was work for myself. The whole point of today's episode is to show you that it literally took a panic attack to make me realize I needed to just listen to my gut. I had to leap. I was always too scared to leap because I was always one to plan ahead. I always needed to be prepared. I always needed that safety net. But let me tell you, that safety net actually holds you back from growing. That safety net holds you back from being your true self. I'm not saying corporate world is not like a good world. I'm saying if you are a true entrepreneur and you're not fully aligned with what you're doing, making that jump instead of slowly going into it with like a side gig or this is not the proper way. You need to just leap. You need to just jump. So if something in you is telling you that you're not fully aligned with what you're doing, give me a call. We want to help as many people make that leap, but we don't want them to just make that leap feeling unsupported. I won't lie, I had some supports. Even as I fell, I had supports. So I want you to know or feel supported as you make that leap, whether it's just listening to this podcast, listening to the experts, or if it's physically working one-on-one with you, you're supported. You have a support team. I want us to jump into 2021, helping you get aligned with yourself and leading you down the path to what you're truly meant to be. Thank you for listening to Raise the Anchor, brought to you by Alizé Creative Solutions. We hope you found that story very inspiring. We look forward to bringing you more this week. Subscribe to the podcast to stay in the loop. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review to spread the love even further. We hope you have smooth sailing.